Thank you. We start with the presenters.
Good morning. My name is Meg Satterthwaite, and I am a professor of clinical law at NYU School of Law. We thank the Inter-American Commission for granting the petitioner's request for a hearing to address the CIA's torture program. In December 2014, the Senate Intelligence Committee released a summary of its 4-year investigation into the CIA's torture program. The report confirmed what many already knew. The CIA had secretly detained and tortured individuals it deemed suspect, violating international legal obligations, human rights standards, domestic law, and American values. It did so in collaboration with an expansive global network of at least 54 countries. Though the Senate report sheds light on the torture program, there has been no accountability in the United States for these violations, and no remedies or reparations for the victims and survivors. Moreover, the Senate report fails to capture the full scope of the torture program's impact, as it excludes individuals who the CIA did not detain, but instead rendered to foreign governments for interrogation, often under torture. In contrast to this U.S. impunity, many foreign states and government officials who participated in the program have been held accountable by national mechanisms and regional human rights courts and tribunals. For example, in Canada, following a 3-year public inquiry, the government acknowledged its role in the extraordinary rendition of citizen Maher Arar, awarded him compensation, and issued a public apology for its participation. Last month, Canada also initiated a criminal prosecution of Mr. Arar's torturer in Syria. The European Court of Human Rights has also held states accountable for their collusion in the torture program. Complicit states, including Macedonia and Poland, have been compelled to provide reparations to survivors. In its most recent decisions, the court found that Poland enabled U.S. authorities to subject the victims to torture and ill treatment on its territory, as well as the risk of refoulement. Honorable Commissioners, the United States is aware of its legal and moral obligations to provide reparations, and has a long history of providing reparations for survivors of torture and unlawful detention, including during times of war. Examples of good practice by the United States and other governments are detailed in our written submission. Despite this record, to date, the U.S. has failed to provide any remedies or reparations. We commend the Commissioner for its long-standing and historic role advancing truth and accountability for grave violations. And we echo the Commission's many calls on the United States to conduct an investigation, prosecute and punish those responsible, and to provide integral reparations. President Obama was not responsible for the creation and the operation of the torture program. In fact, he ended it. However, his legacy will be marked by how he responded to its existence and to the men whose lives it destroyed. Today, we provide the Commission with an overview of the U.S. legal obligations to provide remedies and reparations. Our presentation will proceed as follows. The Commission will next hear from Stephen Watt of the ACLU, who will address lack of accountability, remedies, and reparations. Following this, Professor Juan Mendez, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, will address the right to redress with an emphasis on the full range of obligations. Next, Mohammed Al-Shuraya bin Saud will provide testimony by audio recording on his experience while detained and tortured within the CIA program. Finally, Jamil Dakwar of the ACLU will present our recommendations. In closing, I call your attention to our written submission and look forward to our discussion.